Picture this: a wall of dark, viscous liquid 25 feet high, moving at 35 miles per hour through the heart of Boston. This is not the plot of a science fiction film. This is January 15th, 1919, and Boston is about to experience one of the most bizarre industrial disasters in American history. In just minutes, 2.5 million gallons of molasses would transform a bustling neighborhood into a scene of unimaginable destruction, claiming 21 lives and injuring 150 others. This is the story of the Great Molasses Flood, a tragedy so surreal that even today, many find it difficult to believe. To understand how such an extraordinary disaster could occur, we must first journey back to the Boston of 1919. The Great War had just ended, and America was riding high on industrial prosperity. Boston's North End was a vibrant working-class neighborhood, home to Italian immigrants, Irish families, and countless laborers who powered the city's economic engine. The air was thick with the sounds of commerce, the clatter of horse-drawn wagons, the shouts of street vendors, and the rhythmic hammering from nearby construction sites. At the heart of this bustling district stood an imposing structure that would become the epicenter of catastrophe, a massive steel tank owned by the United States Industrial Alcohol Company. This cylindrical giant measured 50 feet in height and 90 feet in diameter, containing enough molasses to fill nearly 4 Olympic swimming pools. The tank had been hastily constructed in 1915 to meet the soaring demand for industrial alcohol during the war effort. Molasses, that thick, dark syrup we associate with baking and candy making, was actually a crucial industrial commodity in early 20th century America. The United States Industrial Alcohol Company used it to produce ethyl alcohol, which was then converted into everything from liquor to munitions. The process was simple but profitable. Molasses arrived by ship from the Caribbean, was stored in the massive tank, then transferred to the company's distillery in nearby Cambridge. But this particular tank harbored a deadly secret. From the moment of its construction, the structure had been fundamentally flawed. The steel plates were too thin for the immense pressure they would bear. The rivets were inadequately spaced and poorly installed. Most damning of all, the tank had never been properly tested for structural integrity. Company officials, eager to capitalize on wartime profits, had rushed the construction process, cutting corners that would prove fatal. Local residents had long complained about the tank's ominous behavior. It leaked constantly, creating sticky brown puddles that neighborhood children would collect in cups and cans, delighting in the sweet treat. The tank groaned and creaked ominously, especially when full, producing sounds that residents described as otherworldly moans. Some neighbors reported that the structure visibly swayed on windy days. These warning signs were dismissed by company officials, who painted the tank brown to camouflage the leaks rather than address the underlying structural problems. The morning of January 15th, 1919, dawned unseasonably warm for a Boston winter. Temperatures had risen dramatically overnight, climbing from near freezing to an almost spring-like 54 degrees Fahrenheit. This sudden temperature shift would prove to be the final trigger in a chain of events that had been building for years. The molasses inside the tank, which had arrived just 2 days earlier from a Caribbean shipment, began to expand and exert additional pressure on the already compromised walls. At approximately 12:30 in the afternoon, the inevitable finally occurred. With a sound that witnesses described as resembling machine gun fire, the tank's rivets began to fail in rapid succession. The entire structure then collapsed catastrophically, releasing its contents in a matter of seconds. What happened next defied all logic and reason. 2.5 million gallons of molasses erupted from the ruptured tank like a dark tsunami. The initial wave stood 25 feet high and moved with the force of a freight train, reaching speeds of 35 miles per hour. This was not the slow-moving syrup that people imagine. Heated by fermentation and propelled by gravity, the molasses behaved like liquid concrete, possessing enough force to demolish buildings and crush anyone unfortunate enough to be caught in its path. The wave struck with devastating precision. A nearby firehouse was completely demolished, trapping several firefighters inside the wreckage. The elevated railway structure that carried trains above Commercial Street was torn from its supports, sending a train car plummeting into the sticky morass below. Buildings that had stood for decades were reduced to splinters in seconds. Horses, unable to escape the advancing wall of molasses, were swept away and drowned in the viscous flood. The human toll was immediate and heartbreaking. 21 people lost their lives that day, including children who had been playing in the street when disaster struck. Today, the site of the molasses tank is occupied by a small park with only a modest plaque to commemorate the tragedy. Yet locals still claim that on particularly hot summer days, the sweet smell of molasses can be detected in the air, a ghostly reminder of that January afternoon when Boston drowned in syrup.